Hi, and welcome to this webinar about getting the right people involved in your content creation process and, of course, scaling content creation. We have very interesting guest speakers today, and it's my honor to open this webinar and to have interesting conversations with them. We'll get to their introductions very shortly. My role here at Folion is the Community Marketing Manager, and you might have met me in previous webinars. The goal is always for you to get inspired, to ask your questions to the speakers live in the chat, and also to learn something. So, of course, the topic today is user roles, user permissions, and really better content creation. In the chat, we also have Marina. She's active, so please ask your questions and we'll either answer them directly in the chat to you or we'll bring them in and ask them to James or Cesar directly. We'll take maximum 60 minutes, being conscious of your time. And yeah, besides asking your questions, if you need to run for whatever reason, we will send you the recording soon after we close the webinar, so you can look back to certain parts or, of course, continue watching if you weren't able to finish it all. The agenda here is we'll talk about the trends and risks in user management. User management is always an important topic, especially around content creation. You don't want the wrong content or off-brand content to go out the door. So kind of like, what's the status there? Then we'll talk with James from RSM UK about their process of onboarding another team onto Folion. And as James said when I spoke to him earlier, he's been very protective of Folion, but now he has the confidence to give more user seats away. So what has moved him to do this and how are they going about it? And then very practically, we'll share what the Folion user roles are. And lastly, we'll talk about beyond the user roles permissions. What else is there to ensure you have smooth and safe content creation in a very efficient way? In terms of who is involved in the webinar, Marina on the right, I've already mentioned her. She's today's chat moderator. And then we have Cesar and James live on the webinar with us here. So I'm going to ask them to briefly introduce themselves. Cesar, welcome. Would you mind sharing what you do here at Folion?
Sure. Thanks for that, Lavka. Cesar Chevalier. I'm Folion's Chief Revenue Officer, so nice to meet you all. What does that actually mean practically? So I lead our commercial teams here at Folion. So that's our sales team, our marketing team, our customer success team, professional services. So effectively, anyone you would interact with here at Folion, customer facing, except support, are teams that I work with. And so nice to meet you all.
Great. Thank you, Cesar. And also, James, it's great to have you here. It would be great to hear, who are you at RSM UK and what do you do?
Yeah, thanks, Lobka. Great to be here. I head up the creative team here at RSM UK. We've been in a quite unique situation of progression and team growth over the last few years. We started off with a team of 4 back about 5 years ago, and now we're a solid team of 14 of all skill sets and experience. And I think it's really important to just give that little bit of context, because part of our journey has been investing in new platforms to make our jobs a lot more streamlined and a lot more effective, and Folion being one of them.
It's great. Thank you for that backstory. And that is interesting indeed. We'll talk more about RSM's journey in a moment. In terms of what you have shared with us beforehand about what you'd like to learn, it's basically 3 main topics. So managing user permissions for editing and publishing, we'll touch on that. Controlling brand guidelines while enabling creation, also part of the webinar. And lastly, protecting content from unwanted edits. We'll do our best to really include all of this. And again, if you have any questions, please raise them either in the chat or on the top right, there is a bar called I have a question. Feel free to paste your questions in there as well, and then I can show them on the screen. Easy for everyone to follow. Well, Cesar, the topic of today's webinar is getting the right people involved for optimal to have optimal user roles and permissions for control and collaboration. I would just be curious to hear from you. What have you found as you talk to a lot of customers that companies struggle with there?
Yeah, I think well, there's a couple of things. I'd say the first one is where to start, right? And even James just alluded to that. When you purchase a platform like Folion, I think the first thing that's natural is to say, right, okay, we'll make sure that it's only our most skilled designers who are in here working with stuff, right? Because it's easy to look at it and say, right, we want to create content that requires design skills, but reality is that content creation requires lots of different people. There are people who are copy editing. There are people who are, really kind of the end user of that content and want to use that content for their audience, and they're approvers, right? So I think it starts with, I'd say looking at, okay, how do we work today? And how do I map that to, the systems that we want to use, right? Because ultimately you'll get the best value from a platform like Folion, or really any technology, if you can mirror it as closely to how you work. That's my view.
And what do you think is Folion's view to balance control and collaboration?
Yeah, no, of course. And so the brand promise of Folion is that you're able to create lots of content and keep it on brand. And so the only way to achieve that is to make sure that you balance, freedom, that creative control, with actually, governance. And so the way that Folion views that is to make sure that we have a role that can suit everyone that's part of the content creation process. So if there are people who are in there who are, my role in content creation is just to copy edit, we should make sure we have a role that allows someone to go into Folion, not be overwhelmed by choices, but only be able to do the thing that they have to do. Same is true for someone who would review content. You don't want them to go in and be able to do something that's beyond what you want them to be able to do, right? You don't want them editing things or changing things. And so the way that Folion views it is to make sure that everyone that has a role in creating content, that we have a way to make sure that they can go in, do the thing that they have to do, and not feel overwhelmed by choice, and make sure it feels easy and intuitive to them.
That's great. And what happens if companies don't adapt kind of like their governance model specifically for content creation? What are the risks involved there?
Yeah, well, I think there's two main risks, and one is a bit more dangerous than the other. So one risk is if you go too far and you allow people in and you don't have the proper governance in place, well, you can make mistakes, right? And if you make a mistake with content that is going to go wide to an audience, let's say you build something inside of Folion and it's meant to be, for a smaller audience, and you don't make sure that that control is in place, or you haven't governed it properly, well, you could have content go out to people that shouldn't see that content, right? So on kind of the big risk side of it all is you can publish content publicly that should not be public, or you can publish content publicly that should be public with information that is not public, right? So that's on the heavy risk side. You could end up doing that. On the lesser side, but still a problem all the same, is you can end up in a position where you don't get the output you want. You're not able to move at the speed you want because you've locked down people so much, or kind of taken into gatekeeping, and you've stopped people from getting into the platform in a way that would be helpful. So in a sense, you're working in Folion in a way that's different than how you work naturally. And so you slow down your content creation as the risk there. So there's a risk of reputational harm on one side, and on the other side, there's a risk that you just don't get the outcome you want, and you just can't move fast enough.
Yeah, interesting how you say in line with how you naturally work. So we'll get to that. But when you talk to sales and marketing leaders, are those risks also the biggest pain points, or are there pain points they actually experience when?
Yeah, I think if you ask a sales leader, you're going to get something very different than if you ask a marketing leader, right? A marketing leader will in almost every case be concerned with making sure that things stay on brand, that people can't go in and change things like facts and figures, can't say they've been in business longer than they have, right? So to marketers, in my experience, it's usually about how do we make sure that we keep our brand, fidelity alive, that we keep true to our brand. So typically that's what I see for marketers is how can we move fast while also making sure we stay true to our brand. On the sales side, they want to move even faster in most cases. They want to be able to empower their people to get things done quicker, right? So they're looking for ways they can collaborate without having to take over the full process. How can I share my feedback? How can I change the things that I need to change without having to start from scratch? And so the needs or requirements of these teams are different, and we enable both, of course.
That's great. And then for those teams or for teams in general, when this is done right, how do you see this impact, for example, content quality, speed of creation, maybe just overall happy team dynamics, or what do you notice there?
Yeah, well, look, when it's done right, then you achieve your content ambition, you achieve your business objectives, because ultimately, right, everyone plays the people involved, everyone has their role to play. And people become frustrated when they have to do more than what they're comfortable doing. Or conversely, people can become frustrated when they're doing much more than they should be doing, right? Or if they're doing work and they need people to give feedback, but they're not. So ultimately, I think when it's done right, what you see is teams working, getting the results quicker, getting content creating quicker, building more innovative content, because the people who were, the stakeholders can be part of that creation process. They can be involved in the creation process, but only as much as they need to be. When it's done right, your brand is strong. You're building really cool content, right? And ultimately, everyone in the company, in most cases, wants the same thing. Your sales guy wants great looking content that's going to wow the prospects. A marketer or a designer also wants to build really cool things that look great and and resonate with the audience. So everyone wants the same thing. And when it's done right, we help them achieve those goals together, quicker.
That's great. Yeah, and I think as Folion, we continue to adapt the user seats and the permissions to enable companies and different departments to do this right. If you, for example, look at the business impact of doing this right for companies that want to really scale their content operations, what do you see there, or what is the cost of not doing this right?
Yeah, well, maybe I'm a rosy outlook kind of person, so maybe I'll focus on positive for now. And so, I have a real customer story here. So we have a property developer based out of the UK, and they build really expensive either buildings or neighborhoods. And so they have multiple brands. So there are 9 operating companies that sit underneath the parent company. And we realized that 2 different teams were using Folion. There was another team using a competitor product, but they all had separate subscriptions. So it meant that they had no way to benefit from really good things that one team was doing. So for example, if one operating company built a really awesome landing page or built a really awesome product brochure, then that was theirs only, and the other team couldn't benefit. They had to still create from scratch. So when it's done right, and that's what's happening now. So the silver lining here is that we got them to consolidate their packages under one. We of course kicked out the competitor, and now we work with all 9 operating companies. And the really cool thing now is that when they build content in one operating company, because they can share templates across their workspaces, everyone wins. And what we're seeing now is they're taking advantage of the templates, their brand kits, and when they have this really awesome template that everyone likes, the other operating company can just apply the brand kit, and now it's theirs to have, right? And they can use it for themselves. So what you get when you do things right is just the ability to really benefit from your coworkers' work, from your colleagues, and to just move faster and to agree on what the gold standard looks like for whatever it is that you want to publish.
That sounds really good. At Folion, we do sometimes talk about controlled flexibility to really have the governance in place with the right people in the right user seats. This, of course, is crucial to achieve what you just described. Is there anything else that you've seen or you want to add to the controlled flexibility topic?
Not really. I think we'll likely end up talking a lot about it, throughout this presentation. But I think, on the whole, ultimately, what we're creating is balance, right? We're allowing people to work at the pace they want without the fear of something going wrong because they let more people into the process. Ultimately, content creation, or really, anything we do at work, it's a collaboration, right? And the more people you bring into any process, the more you need to make sure that you govern how it works if you want it to work well. And so I think ultimately that's what this is all about here today, is ensuring that our customers and even our prospects understand how within Folion you can balance getting things done quickly, building beautiful content, but ensuring that, as you invite more and more people into the process, people who are naturally part of that process already, that you can protect, the quality of your work.
That's great. And just for the audience, thank you, Cesar. I have just placed a poll question live. It's a question, has a lack of user seats ever blocked access for someone? It's something we have heard from some of our customers. And again, per Cesar's description of having the right people in the right seats in the natural flow of work, that is, of course, what we want to avoid. So if you could let us know, yes, frequently, yes, but rarely, or no, we have enough user seats. And thank you for all the answers so far. I see them coming in. Yes, but rarely is definitely the winner there. But we'll keep it open for another moment. And then let's switch to include James in this conversation. James, I'd love to introduce RSM UK before we dive into what RSM UK is actually doing with Folion. So I have prepared a little bit of a supporting slide here where high level, you're in the accounting industry. Your company, RSM UK, is located in the UK, but it's, I believe, a global firm. There are Folion customers since 2023. There are currently 2 workspaces in your account with 37 users, of which 25 reviewers. And there are 22 docs live at the moment. Feel free to add to this in a moment if you're like, this is a little different from what I thought it was. I see that the content types you're creating are mainly reports, brochures, and proposals. So in terms of where that sits in the overall content compass of what is possible with Folion, it touches majorly the marketing, sales, and corporate comms areas there. Anything to add to this introduction, James?
I mean, you've nailed it, really, Lobka. Yeah, it's always quite nice to see that we've got so many documents live because the uptake and engagement on our Folion pieces that we've produced has probably surprised us because we are working quite closely with our digital team to make sure that the Folion documents that we create don't actually overtake or start to try and replace the web pages that they are housed on. It's really important that the two do talk to each other. So that's only really one aspect of how we're treating Folion. But I think it's important to give that context so that we're able to work with the two platforms combined, really, because our web pages and our website is our #1 communication tool. So it's really important that Folion plays into that rather than tries to fight with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting balance. And again, everyone in the audience, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, either to Cesar or James, feel free to throw them in, either the chat or the questions on the top right of your screen. James, would you mind sharing a little bit what is the content creation process high level in RSM UK?
Yeah, I began this thought process with hey, we're probably in a bit of a unique situation here where we've got a team of dedicated designers that use Folion. But I don't think we're too much of a unique case study because I'm sure there's many other businesses out there that have that skill set in place. And I think it's probably more seeing it as an advantage to how we approach Folion because of our design and creative background. At the end of the day, Folion is one of those platforms that is designed for non-designers, so to speak, and non-designers to be able to use. But the process that we go through is basically that a brief comes in and we decide together with our project management team and our marketing department to make sure that Folion is the right thing to do. And more often than not, our Folion documents do get created by our design team themselves, purely because of the exposure that they have and working within the platform on a daily basis. And I will touch on our dream, I suppose, a little bit later, because I know we're going to talk about other members of the business and other teams of the business. But for now, in a nutshell, that's pretty much how we roll with Folion.
Yeah, so your team is kind of like the content creation team for the rest of the organization.
Yeah, but we work with our content writers, again, our Digi team, who have really good points when it comes to digital design and digital layouts, because we are classically trained graphic designers, so to speak, that work in a print background and have done. So it's important that we do tap into that digital mindset to make sure that we are giving the end user that full experience.
That's great. Yeah, so initially you started in that way where your team were mainly creating the Folian docs. And you mentioned that you're very hesitant to give others access to Folian. What?
Yeah, well, I mean, us creatives, we're quite protective. And we're brand guardians, really, and we want to make sure that the brand is used, especially with the guidelines that we work within at RSM UK, which is, as you said earlier, part of the global network. But within the global network itself, RSM UK do have a very strong design team. So it's only natural for us to make sure that things are done properly at a high level quality as well.
And what were your biggest concerns then about adding more users?
Yeah, I mean, apart from, I guess, letting go of our baby, so to speak, we were quite worried about the drop in quality because people don't have the same background that us designers do have. So that drop in quality was probably the biggest talking point for us. And we wanted to make sure that if we were to support, how do we support that without it becoming detrimental to us? And we do have ways around that. So more to come on that one.
Great. All right. Thank you. And then in terms of like now the implementation, because your M&A team is also onboarding onto Folian. In a moment, I'm going to show the Folian user roles, but do you want to first talk about the M&A or team onboarding, or do you first want to maybe share your dream?
Well, I mean, part of the dream kind of plays into how things are getting evolved at the moment. But the challenge that's been set to us really is how do we bring the business of 5,000 people up to a certain level or quality where we are happy to see that they have learnt from design fundamentals, I suppose, and have a knowledge and proficiency on they're able to actually go off and do be more self-sufficient without having to rely on our team. Yes, we're a larger team than we were, but we're still considerably small, and we are a national team, which means that we serve the business, and it's almost going to be next to impossible for us to service a business of 5,000 people. So we need help. And taking away the pressures that would be set on a central team is really important. And at first, we are going to have to do that level of training to get people up to that certain level. But investment there will absolutely help us in the long run. And that plays into what we're doing with the M&A team as well, because the M&A team, mergers and acquisitions for short, quite proficient in how they do their roles. Their documents. I think back in the day, and I'm saying back in the day, even just a couple of years ago, the M&A team are great with PowerPoint and able to create PowerPoint documents that are engaging, that are well laid out, that are thought about. What we want to achieve with them and collaborate and work with them is to get them up to that level of what they are proficient in PowerPoint with Folian. And we're starting on that journey already, really. We've worked with them, collaborated with them to give them the tips and tricks. We've done presentations, and we're already starting to train them up in the world that we live in, really, which is that creative and design world. So we're definitely getting there with them.
That's great. And maybe just to now switch to a question that came in. James, as a non-Big Four business operating in a highly competitive market, what do you see as the biggest impact Folian has had on both the business externally, think competition, and also on the improvements on the production process internally? Have you seen improvements in efficiency too?
Well, what a question. Great point. We are proudly a non-Big Four organization, but it doesn't mean that we don't know our stuff. And it is important that we attain a certain level of quality. My background is agency background. So I come with that level of, okay, this is the type of quality that we need to adhere to. And a lot of my team also come from that background as well. So for us to be as proficient and efficient with what we create, it's changing the mindset of people, because we can't really do it on our own, and we can't really do it in a way that relies on us too much. So going back to that point of getting people trained up and educated onto what good looks like really is going to be, yes, it's a short-term investment, but it's got long-term rewards, and that's the kind of stuff that we want to achieve across the board, really.
That's great. Yeah, and that really ties into what you said earlier about we need help. We need help to produce the content for this large size company with increasing demand for different content. Nice. James, I want to quickly introduce a poll question. So I've closed the previous one, and indeed the poll answer, yes, but rarely, was the winning answer. Now the poll question, which department in your company has the biggest content needs, is open. M&A isn't one of them. So if that's the case for you, click other and let us know in the chat which other department. But sales, HR, marketing, and corporate communications are the main one. And interestingly enough, marketing is the winner there. So let us know which department in your company has the biggest content needs. And then I'd like to go to a bit of an overview of the user roles before asking James how he decided who to give access to which user role, to really give the people the right user seat and access and ability to do what they need to do in line with their natural workflow. So at Folion, of course, depending on your package, you'll have access to all or some of these user roles, but they're divided in premium and standard and free user roles. And we have those 8 different user roles that you see here, where the publisher and editor are there twice, but depending on your package, you have only access to the content builder or both the content builder and the content studio. Again, that is super beneficial to manage who can do what in the creation of your Folion docs. And also, if this topic gets a little complicated for you and you're like, my mind is blowing up, my head can't take this on this Wednesday, don't worry, we can help you just get a bit of an overview of how things are set up in your account and maybe recommend adjustments where needed. So don't worry, we've got you here. But high level, the admin user role has the access to everything, but is mainly there to set up user management and the technical setup. So technical setup, domains, integrations, that sort of thing. The designer role should be there to set up the brand kits, the templates, the assets in the media library, and can choose who to share this to in your organization. So which workspace. Then the publisher is someone that can use and edit templates and publish Folion docs. And depending on your package, they have access to the content builder and or content studio. Same with the editor. However, they can only use templates and brand kits. They can't really change much. So perfect for people that you really don't want to mess up anything. And then the personalizer, of course, this is a brilliant role to scale up personalized content going out the door. So they only have access to the personalization mode. And the last one here is a free role. It's the reviewer seat. And they can only access review mode and leave comments on all of your docs. So really brilliant too. In a moment, I'm going to share Vincent Mason's example, who have literally given all their all the people in their company access as a reviewer in order to review content. So that is just it high level. I don't want to go in depth, but James, I am really curious. with your M&A team that is onboarding, how did you decide which person to give which user role?
Yeah, I think what's happened with us is we've realized quite quickly that a great level of detail in those user roles that you just shared there, Lobke. But what we realized is that when we started off with the reviewer role, we worked out quite quickly that what the M&A team wanted to achieve by going in and editing and making sure that things were done in a certain way, they couldn't do that as a reviewer. So we've shared a license with them to make sure that they understand the background of what happens the back end of what happens in Folion, and they've given us feedback on what can be done, what can't be done. They've really started to push the boat out with certain things. And look, every platform has its limitations, so it's really understanding what can be done within the platform itself, without having to write dedicated code or actually get developers to create a website that takes entire teams to do. So the challenge, one of the challenges that we did have was helping that team in particular understand that Folion, yes, it's a digital piece, but it's not a website in itself. It can be treated like a microsite. It can be treated as a digital document. But when it comes to particular wants, I suppose, that's where we realized that having to upgrade for a user to do what they wanted to do was really important. The reviewer or the free licenses are great from a commenting point of view and a feedback point of view, but when you need a little bit extra, it's really important that we get those designer roles or editor roles down pat, just to give people a little bit more freedom within the platform itself.
Great. And you did mention that they are pretty proficient in using PowerPoint for what they're currently or have previously been working on. Where do you see the added value for them to now start creating Folion docs as digital content versus the PowerPoint documents?
Yeah, as I said earlier, part of the challenge that we've been set is making things that are much more engaging to our clients. You'll always still have those clients that respond well to, say, a PDF document or a PowerPoint document, but it's tapping into those clients, say those consumer clients or the tech clients that come with a level of expectation anyway when it comes to engaging information, really. So what was really important for us and working with the M&A team is figuring out what the client wants and what that end user wants, rather than what we think they want. So having those kind of conversations have been really important. And we might touch on this in more detail later, but we've only really just started working into templates into our workspace, because in the past, everything has been quite bespoke. And therefore, with bespoke layouts and bespoke design comes time. So that efficiency piece really is the next level up really for us. And that's where we want to focus on, so that templates can be dropped in. Or it's almost like that drag and drop system really, isn't it? You drop the template in and you adjust the colors, you adjust fonts, whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that things are still there and still manageable, but done in a much more efficient way.
Yeah, in an ideal world, you might not even need to create content. You just piece it together by dragging in the right blocks with the right kind of content, maybe adjusting some details here and there, personalizing it, and then out the door.
Exactly.
Nice. So it's definitely, just to recap, the process of deciding what the right user roles are for who in the new team that's onboarding. It's first understanding their process. What do they currently do? Having them test Folion to see if the user roles you maybe indicated for them, possibly with the help of Folion, I may imagine as well, and then get their feedback. Hey, is this really enough, too much? Are you limited in any way? Getting them to create content easily and then adding to their process. Is that more or less it?
With that, yeah.
All right, nice. I got an interesting question from Anne, so I'm going to show it on the screen. She asks, "Hi James, curious to hear what benefit you've seen behind using the publisher role versus the designer role."
Oh, thank you, Anne. I think we, at the moment, we pretty much use them in hand with each other. So the difference is quite minimal. The designer role, I would say, is probably suited better to your more advanced users. So the users that would be, I guess, our design team, and those that have been trained up to a certain level to make that work. But I guess the publisher role is more that top level person that can come in and make suggestions and work collaboratively with the designer or the person in that designer role to make sure that as a team you're doing things right.
Great, thank you, Anne, for asking the question. And then James, what improvements do you expect to see once this team is fully up to speed? Whether it's in speed of getting content out the door, maybe pressure off of your team to support them in creating content. What are your expectations there?
Yeah, definitely the latter, Lobka. The pressure off the team is always going to be a welcomed thing for us. We want to get a lot of the teams that we work with up to that speed, up to that level, so that we are able to, I guess, entrust them to do the job and do the job well without having to get us involved too much. I think there'll still be that level of consultancy from our side. And I think that's still quite an important role to have because they will be continually learning as they push the boundaries of what the platform can do. But definitely, making sure that that pressure is lifted off the team so that we can continue creating great things.
Fantastic. And what would be your recommendation to other organizations considering to add more teams to Folion?
Yeah, I think first, have that conversation around what do we want to achieve here? What's our end user experience? I do think it's important to stay protective of your brand and stay protective of your role within Folion. But when it comes to communication and collaboration, I think that's where you can ease off a little bit when it comes to creating things together, I suppose, and not feeling like you're fighting with each other. I think that's quite an important piece.
That does sound pretty good, not fighting. Great, James, thank you so much. I'm gonna switch to an example of pins and masons. So I'm gonna start a 2-minute video and then we'll be back to ask Cesar some more questions. Thank you, James.
No problems.
So I work in a law firm where obviously we have lots of lawyers, partners, paralegals, and subject matter experts. And really it's the people and our knowledge that sells the business. But as a result of that, we probably don't have a business filled with content creators and creative people. Having a solution to solve that problem of being able to make things look great, to make the brand consistent and to make the brand shine within quite a saturated industry. And so Folion fits that gap perfectly in order to create pure but also beautiful looking documents. We have 7 workspaces within our Folion platform, and we use them to split out our different offices within our different regions on a global scale. So the way that we set up our Folion account is to have every member of staff a reviewer within the space. And that means that our publishers can share their documents with anyone within the business, whether it be a partner, a lawyer, or anyone else. And that means that we can really get our subject matter experts to look at all our documents at any given time, regardless of time zones. Content quality was a key aspect for us, and being able to create documents within a templated situation where we can dictate what the document looks like, whilst our business development people within the business, our subject matter experts, can really add the content to how that looks. What really makes sense is we can have design experts like myself to build those templates and then share them throughout the rest of the business. It's really like cloning my knowledge and giving that information to the rest of the firm. So the improvements that we've seen within Pinsent Masons has really been around the brand governance, the brand consistency, but also the engagement that our people within the business have with our brand.
So in Peter's organization, the setup is quite similar, where a lot of departments used to request content from him and his team while they've onboarded multiple different teams to their own workspaces. So I've just opened the poll question: would extra workspaces make content management easier for you? Yes, that would be useful. Maybe I need to learn more, or no, our current setup works fine, or other. And then I'd love to hear it in the chat. And then I'm welcoming Cesar back. James is also still online, so please also ask your questions if you have any left for James. Cesar, for companies that have the vision to include other teams on Folion, where do they start?
Yeah, I think so. When we look at Folion and when we talk to our customers, we typically ask them to think about using Folion in the way, as I said, in the way that you would logically kind of organize your work. So within Folion, you have a bit of a hierarchy, right? You have your documents, and then you have project folders, and then you have workspaces. And we tend to recommend that your project folders are organized by use case, because all the things you would integrate, all the things you would build, such as a URL, it's usually going to be pretty well aligned to the use case. But then above that in a workspace, it's really a matter of how you work today. I would say, obviously it's always good to start small. To James' point, get the lay of the land, get a good working system going before you start inviting people in. Because if you invite people in too quickly, it'll be a bit of chaos. But ultimately, what you want to be able to do is to work the way you normally work. So in a workspace, people have, workspaces dictate permissions. So it dictates what people can see. And so if you don't want the sales team kind of, fumbling around in marketing's content, you probably want to separate those teams out, right? Give them the ability to see each other's work, but not be able to, amend or change their work, right? And so that's where workspaces really come into play. So I would say where you get started is think about how your team is situated today. How do they work together today? And again, as you get the best value from any platform, not just Folion, really any platform, if you can mirror the way that you work in real life in the system. And so that's what's good about workspaces, also in line with the Pinsent Masons case study.
Great. Yeah. So once you're like, things are getting messed up, there are too many people, things are kind of like, people are in my way, things are in my way, I can't find what I need, then maybe workspace is the right thing to consider.
It's a bit like digital bumping of elbows, right? Like you start to feel uncomfortable. You start to feel like, okay, right, this isn't working in the way that I want it to work. People are in here kind of in my space. Don't really like that too much. And so I think you will quickly get to that point. And you just organize, if you've let people into the platform, and then you just organize in a way that's, sensible and allows people to work together while giving them their own space to do their work, creatively.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So once, when maybe you're just with a few people, user roles, user permissions within the same space, maybe dividing it on project folders could make sense. But then once you're in each other's way, workspaces are the solution.
Yeah. And again, it could be that from the very beginning, you're like, hey, we both want to go fast, right? Both of our teams want to go fast. I've got a brand team over here that's focusing on corporate comms. I've got a proposals and bids team over here, right? I would say if the work is that distinct, where it's already from the very beginning, it's so different, then that's where workspaces from day one just makes sense, right? The use cases are so far apart and the teams wouldn't naturally be working in the same space that from day one, like dividing those teams into workspaces just makes sense. But if you're looking at kind of complementary teams, such as maybe an ABM team and a demand generation team, or a corporate comms and demand generation team, right? Those teams may often share a lot of resources and assets, but at a certain point, once they hit a critical mass in content creation, they may want to be in their own spaces. And so, different situations call for different things. As any good consultant would say, it depends. And so I think it's about looking at how your team is structured and working with the folks here at Folion, and we can help.
Great. Yeah, and indeed we can help. So let me go to a poll question that might be of interest to all of you online. First, wrap up the current one. Would extra workspaces make content management easier? Actually, 50% says that it would be useful. And then the rest divides over maybe or no, and nobody says other. So thank you for your responses. I'm going to close this one. And in case you are interested to talk to one of us, someone at Folion, about what is the right way for your user roles, your user permissions, and whether workspaces is kind of like make sense or not, let us know, because you can let us know, yes, I'd love to have a call, maybe later, but send me some info now, or no, thank you. No matter what, it's all good for us. We're here to help. And then Cesar, I'd love to hear, besides user roles, workspaces, what else is kind of coming next to workspaces and user roles?
Oh, there's so much. We've got our big spring launch coming up. So of course, I don't want to steal the thunder or share too many secrets, but there is some really cool stuff that we're already talking about, right? So many of you would have seen already. And if you haven't seen it yet, you will see it after this weekend. We've completely rebuilt our dashboard in Folion. And you've heard me use the term a number of times throughout the session of trying to mirror the way that you work. That's really the purpose of the workspace. So what we've looked at historically within Folion is that, you know, we set up a workspace, and that workspace becomes kind of the main account or the parent workspace, so to speak. And then every team that comes in after that first team in is almost a child to that parent workspace. But that's not how people work, right? Just because someone was first into the account doesn't give them kind of dominion over the other teams. And so if you think about how it should work realistically, central teams, such as a team like James' team, which is a central design team, right? They should manage at a layer above the workspaces. They should be able to manage across all the different teams, and the teams should be on equal footing. So we've rebuilt the dashboard to say, hey, we know the teams are going to be equal, but let's give people who manage integrations, people who manage the brand, people who manage, how the teams work together. Let's give them another management layer above the workspaces to be able to, basically set up Folion in the way that you work today. So our new dashboard's coming. There's a new admin console. We've brought all of those commands, all of those kind of settings to the forefront. So people who need to go in there and help set up, as I said, your integrations or, your user role and management, we've brought that all up another level. Brand space is coming soon as well, which is really cool. And it's going to allow your brand managers to be able to go in and kind of allocate who can have what brand associated with the workspace, as well as be able to control how templates are shared at a higher level. We've also got really cool content modules. I don't know if I can talk about that yet, but some really cool stuff around how you share content, how you manage the fidelity of that content, no matter who the user is on the other side. So we've got some really, really cool things coming that are going to help bigger organizations set up Folion to match the way that they work today so that they can work faster and smarter within Folion. So I'm super excited about a lot of these things.
That's amazing. And yeah, those content modules, I added a slide with some supportive visuals about those different governance layers that we're introducing. I didn't add the content modules, but they're coming indeed as well. It's basically linked content so that if you're managing templates and lots of live docs, you don't need to go in each and every one if something has changed and needs to be updated in all of them. But yeah, more about that later.
Well, yeah, we could talk about it real quick though, right? So when you think about having the different user roles, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is, okay, let's say you've got something that you don't want, a standard user or someone who's kind of a business user to change. So it could be every company has facts and figures, every company has, footers or it could be bios for people if you're using, if you're doing it using proposals. That content you don't want it changing. It doesn't need to change. So today inside of Folion, we have the concept of locked content modules. So you can go, or locked content blocks. So you can go inside of Folion and say, hey, this little piece of content here, I don't want anyone changing it. So I'm going to lock it so that someone who is a standard user, they can't change this content. I can't change the facts and figures. I can use it in my Folion document, but I can't change it, right? But the natural kind of evolution of that locked content is, well, okay, if I lock this content and then it changes, and I've used that locked element in 10 places or 15 places, I don't want to have to update it 15 times, right? So now we've introduced content modules, which allows you to create those blocks of content, or even a number of blocks of content, where you say, right, this is managed and changed centrally. So if I change it in one place, anywhere I've used that content component, that content template, that change cascades out to everywhere. So it's a really, really good tool to govern content creation when you have a lot of people creating content, or when you start really making use of content templates and reusing your content components. So really, really exciting feature. Probably the thing I'm most excited about in the spring release.
That's amazing. Yeah, so Cesar, thank you so much for teams or individuals watching right now that want to kind of explore what's possible within their plans, and for them, would you say to just talk to us, or would you refer to them somewhere else?
Oh, well, certainly not elsewhere. And so yeah, we've got obviously our customer success managers. So every account of ours is paired with a customer success manager, and they're obsessed with one thing, which is how do you get the most value from Folion, right? How can they make sure that you're doing the right things, that your account's set up the right way, that your documents are all set up in the best possible way? You also, in many cases, for our mid to large size accounts, you have an account manager. They have even more accounts, and the benefit of both of them is that customer success managers are your day-to-day person that can enable you in how to get the most of the platform. Your account manager works with probably 300 to 400 accounts, and so they've seen really cool things from other accounts. They know what other brands are doing that are like you and might be interesting to you. And so, of course, without sharing anything proprietary, we tend to share, hey, we saw this person starting to create these things inside of Folion. You might be interested in how they're doing that. And so we have lots of people here to help. Is a short version. And so definitely reach out to your CSM, reach out to your account manager. They want to help, and they'll help you get things set up.
Fantastic. Cesar, thank you so much for joining and for sharing what you have learned and continue to see when you talk to so many different customers out there. James, thank you so much for joining as well. It was very insightful to learn of your process of onboarding the M&A team onto Folion. Of course, within your brand guardrails and with giving you peace of mind. Very interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you as well as our audience for joining today. It's really great to have you. Only a few questions came in while the audience online is actually pretty big, but thank you for answering the poll questions. Very insightful. And as a final request, please fill out our one question survey. So once I close this webinar, you'll immediately be redirected, and it would be brilliant if you take less than a minute to fill that out. Great. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Lobka. Thanks.